something that we are, or is it something we experience? Because the way that it was communicated to me was in a culture such as like India. You experience shame, you don't just experience it, you become it. And the only way that you can get out of it is if someone's in a higher social position that helps lift you out. Whereas in a honor, innocence, guilt society, we declare our guilt and then offer a confession, restitution, and then we're restored in the public eye. But in a shame culture per se, it's not necessarily like that. But from a brain science perspective and what you've seen, how does that, is that the same? Is that different? How does that work?
Again, you've come up with a nice complex question. I think it's probably crossing two things in the brain that are mixed together in culture. One is status, and the other is shame. The brain is wired for seven major emotions, 6 of which are unpleasant. And the one pleasant one is joy. Right. So joy means I'm very glad to be with you. The opposite of joy is the shame wiring in the brain. And it's a response to when what I'm doing doesn't bring you joy. So it is the sort of the alarm circuit for the joy circuit, you might say. Now, if when I'm not bringing you joy, I have a chance to correct that, then shame does not become toxic. If once I do something that shames you, and Brazil, for instance, another place on our hemisphere that has really a great difficulty ever recovering from shame, because it lowers your status. The brain is even more responsive to status cues than it is to emotional cues. So to figure out your gender, if I'm looking at you using the standard formulation, a binary worldview, you might say, to use the current language, it takes me 150 milliseconds to figure out if you're male and female. To figure out whether your social status is higher or lower than mine takes me 40 milliseconds, about a fourth of the amount of time. So I'm very, very, very sensitive to whether something is raising or lowering my status. Now, when I go particularly to, I would say, Buddhist and Hindu cultures, the ones that believe in reincarnation, within their worldview is there's no way to improve your status this incarnation. You can only wait till the next one. And so there's a vast amount of hopelessness built into that reincarnation view for this particular round. But status is something that, if we look at Jesus during his time, the highest status you could have and still be human was a demigod. And a demigod had a father who was a god and a mother who was a human. So along comes Jesus, who has got a father who's a god and a mother who's a human. He's got the highest of all status. It's basically bulletproof within the cultures of the time. You can't get higher than this status. And Jesus basically says, because my status is bulletproof, you can't lower my status. No human being has the capacity to do so. Whether you try to humiliate me or not, you can't lower my status, but I can raise yours. The option of you also becoming a child of God who would have human parents and a divine parent is something he opens to other people. So this status view that you can have your status raised, but you can't raise it for yourself is very compatible with what Jesus says. And so we find he's got no worries at all about having anyone try to lower his status. And he goes to all the low status people, and women, prostitutes, tax collectors, lepers, and he raises their status, and he says, you can have the same status that I have of being this person with a father who's God and a mother who is human. And that's the second birth and all these different kinds of things that we talk about. But that's a little separate, you see, but it very quickly could mix, since usually if I do something that brings shame on my people, they want to lower my status to, you're not a member of my people in good standing. And so I think it's the these two things coming together in some of those cultures that are making it hard to sort out, what is shame and what is status. Status are very hard to move. Shame comes and goes very quickly as an emotion response. But something that causes shame can also really, take the wind out of your status. Does that make sense to you?